Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Gabe, Mogabr Show. Today's special guest is going to be Ande Lyons. She is a four-time startup founder and host of the Startup Life, a live streaming show that she hosts on YouTube. Very impressive woman. Very happy to meet her. So energetic and full of great information. Um, I was debating whether or not I was going to put this episode out just because there's so much going on in the world. The invasion of Ukraine, so many people being needlessly hurt. Not that there's ever a need for people to be hurt. Um, it was weird. It felt weird recording this episode. Recorded it just because it was already scheduled, and I wanted to put it out and make sure that I honored Andy's time because she graced me with her presence and with the honor, and I was humbled that she even agreed to appear on my show. So therefore, I decided to proceed and record this. But I'm very much thinking of all of my friends and their families that are currently in Ukraine and are fighting the Russian invasion and that are, really just trying to survive. So do what you can when you can. Please verify all information. And let's get on to today's episode.
Start over.
Yeah, I've done that so many times, and then it's like and then it's just not organic. Then you don't know where to start again. It's just like,
That's right.
where do I go from here?
Well, as someone who's been podcasting, I just realized I've been podcasting for 10 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I've had 4 podcasts. And so I'm so excited that you started this way of sharing your deliciousness with the world, Gabe.
Well, thank you.
Because you have thoughts that matter. There are people out there who want to hear what you have to say and what your audience or your guest wants to say and how you let it unfold. So I'm really excited for this for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, this all started, it's a kind of, like, again, I have a lot of, industry friends, and they have amazing tech podcasts. And everyone was asking me, well, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, not tech, because it would be extremely egotistical of me to think that I can do it better than them or do something different than what they're doing. When I listen to all of their podcasts, so I'm probably going to be influenced by it and then probably end up regurgitating some of the things that they've said. And then it's just going to sound like I'm copying them. So I was just like, what? I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I can't do it.
As we say up here in Boston, you're wicked smart to do that. One of the guy who does my website and hosts my website and he helps podcasters. He has a big tech background. His podcast is called The Anxious Truth. So yeah, he could talk about tech all day long, but he talks about anxiety.
Yeah.
And how to dissolve it, live with it, every aspect of it. And so it's just part of who you want to be for this type of content.
And and it's funny, there's a great poem that I love, that I remember hearing it back in elementary school, and it stuck with me, by Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the masks. And we wear the mask that grins, and I'm not going to get into it, but it's a great poem. I won't do him justice. Not that I ever heard, but we are all different people. We play different roles depending on who we are with, who we're talking to. But at the end of the day, it's who we are at our core, who we wear these different masks, but we're still us underneath those masks.
And right. And there's the doing of ourselves. So a lot of people are doing. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this, but it's who are you when you're being?
Yeah.
That's a different level.
Absolutely.
And that's why I called my brand Andelicious Advice, because in the startup world, no one is silly. No one is light. I'm not saying I'm silly, but no one's light. No one really has that lane of enthusiasm that is contagious. and I talk about really hardcore business
And
elements,
I love that. Like when I started watching your show, which is live, and I love that aspect. By the way, I'm so
right?
jealous and nervous and scared because I've thought about, do I ever want to do a live component? I'm like, I would freeze. I don't know that I could do that. I was like, so I'm insanely jealous of you to be able to do that.
I'd
And
be
I
happy to
applaud you.
practice with you anytime. You say, Andy, I want to do a dry run. So you, for your title, you'll do a dry run. You'll hit live. Here's what happens. It is scary. Like the first 20, 30 times you do it, it's scary because there's no going back.
Yeah,
And so, but it puts you, slams you into the present moment so fast.
yeah,
And even if answering comments from the folks live, if that's going to be a challenge, you can of course have someone, hire someone to help you with that. But you can also say, I'll take your comments in about 10 minutes. I'm going to have this conversation first. But that going live, it's probably like what the Broadway actors feel
yeah,
when there's, yeah, you know what you're going to be saying, you're going to be doing, but that live element adds just an energy that
yeah,
makes it so spontaneous. And I end up asking questions that are random. And then my audience will ask a great question.
yeah,
And sometimes I get a guest on, like you recently listened to the one conversion rate
yeah. That was a
optimization.
good one. Yeah,
That can be a really dry topic for a lot of people. But as a guest, she was brilliant because she knew her stuff. There was no umming or eyeing or anything. She just laid it out. And now I have this great content I can send founders to. And so sometimes it's about the engagement and conversation with the guest, but also sometimes it is about what they have to say that is so important for a business that it feels like I now have a resource that I can further impact the startup ecosystem with, especially for those founders who are located in the middle of nowhere and don't have the support.
and I think that's what's so intriguing about your show. You, aside from the fact that you're a multiple time founder yourself,
Yes.
um, you are giving, and I just you are giving people this. So now I have to leave that in there. I can't
All
edit
right.
that out. You are giving people the resources to, for the tools. Like when I met you, you reached out to me and you told me about your show, and then I'm listening to the show on conversion rate optimization, and for someone like me who I'm come from very much embedded into the tech world, but from a technical perspective, and now I'm like on another side of it. I'm doing something completely foreign to me, and very much imposter syndrome is in there, and I'm just like just listening to it. Now I'm going back and watching all of your old stuff. And I'm like, okay, what else did I miss with a notebook? Like I'm in school and, just like listening and just taking notes.
Right.
So I think that's extremely, extremely helpful.
Yeah.
It's extremely big of you to do that. You don't have to do that. And this is a lot of stuff you could put behind the paywall and monetize it easily. And
I
people
know.
will probably pay for it. But
I
you
keep thinking about
are
that. I do. Yeah, there's so many different platforms out there, but there's this calling for me
Mhm,
that it is, of course, representation. So my guest was a woman, and she was able to talk about what it was like to be at her level of conversion rate optimization, starting at
mhm,
Google and then going into a high-end consulting firm that consulted with the top Fortune 500 companies to saying, I could do a better job at this.
mhm.
And but being able to have that representation, and to me that's even more important, is to bring founders up who are not what we typically see in all the conversations in the startup lane. You can
Yeah,
see it in other lanes,
yeah.
but not in the startup lane. Representation is so important, and bringing them in. So Friday's guest, incredible woman around leadership, and we've seen some extraordinary leadership over the last few days, given this is February 28th. And what she kept honing in on is that you need to value the people you're working with and let them know they're valued. And that is what's going to exponentially bring great results for you as a leader. What she also talked about, which was so important to me, was when a founder is raising capital, they tend to acquiesce. They tend to sort of hand over the ball to the people giving them the money. And we talked about how it's so important to step into your role as founder. You are a peer with these investors. You want to make sure what we call the capitalization table, those are your investors on the cap table, are in alignment with you, or you will be folding your business. They will be a chokehold on your business. So that was important. But more, we talked about how to not get caught up in that hierarchical play, that you need to extrapolate what they're good at and keep a clear path of communication, explain those rules of engagement that you're going to have with your investors. But you are the founder, you are equal. These are the conversations that I love to get out to folks as founders, because when you're a first time founder, you're struggling with so many aspects of the business. You're just trying to figure out, how do I get paid? How do I get customers on board? And even then, a lot of folks don't understand what is an LTV CAC ratio. So we can talk about that long-term value over the cost of acquiring a customer. People are like, oh, I don't know what it costs to acquire a customer. Oh, well, let's talk about that. So there's these little nuggets, but they're all woven into these amazing startup stories. So Friday's guest, the leadership gal, she was an actress. I mean, from age 8, she was an actor and had a great career for a solid 10 years. And it was when she was performing in a big production in London that she started to go into more leadership work. And she, at the age of 24, she had her own theater group and house, or whatever you call them. You know, phenomenal. To another founder who got incarcerated at the age of 17 and looked around him and said, I don't want to be that guy 20 years later. What can I do? And he taught himself computer science without a computer, and then learned how to create apps with his Toshiba. He did what they call a Hackintosh. And then so he could create an app for the iOS. These are the stories that one guy had on, and he started talking about how when his family left Kuwait, they were on this bus and they didn't know if they were going to be bombed any minute. And so they were all singing. And he said, that really drove home to me. It's who you're on the journey with. They were singing, they were laughing, and founders have to think about that, right? They have to think of who is on this journey with me. So while we're talking about a lot of the hardcore things, you know, proving your value prop, raising capital, what's your revenue model, how'd you figure out pricing, you know, all of those things, how are you onboarding customers? These stories pop up of their lived experience, and to me,
Yeah.
that's just as fascinating.
And what I love about this, the greater American public and the greater world, they think of startups as SaaS companies, the tech, the sexy tech company, that the unicorn that's gonna, gonna bring in billions from venture capital funds and make billionaires immediately once they IPO. But startups are so much more than just the sexy SaaS company.
That's right.
um, it's so much more. Like, you think of these consultancy, they're not a SaaS company, but they're who the SaaS companies are going to go to when they want. And I'm learning this now the hard way. They're who people are going to go to for, efficiency,
Right. Oh,
auditing and
yeah,
all
you
these
have
other
to
things.
yeah, you have to outsource as a founder. That is absolutely key. You know, get somebody who's brilliant at it during the early days, because it's too expensive to bring them in-house. Yes, what she was talking about with
Yeah.
the conversion rate optimization, but also what happens is this glorification of entrepreneurship. And I'm always telling my audience and founders, if you are feeding your family, yourself, and you have repeat sales and you're on your way to sustainability and profitability, you have won. Even if the company folds up 6 months later, you have won, okay? If you happen to grow enough so that you are feeding some people in your community or in the world, wow, you've got employees? Come on, you have won. If you grow to 10 million, 50 million, or you're into world domination, that's great too. But they seem to discount anybody. The conversations, especially with venture capital, we're looking for that unicorn. You know what? You can make a lot of money with a company, even at 10 million or 25 million, if you're able to help them scale and they have a nice sweet exit, get picked up by Google or somebody in their category, everybody wins. Come on. The pressure on founders, and this is what happens a lot, Gabe, is founders raise that money. Perhaps they're really good at raising that money. And now all of a sudden they have a tiny runway. They don't have this really long runway to take off because they've got their investors breathing down their neck. As much as we want to talk about leading investors, they still have a timeline. They have their agenda for their fund. And so it becomes staggering, the weight on your shoulders to scale even faster, and you're not going to make good decisions that way. It's better to bootstrap, which forces you to be even more creative and more edgy and more lean. You're going to create miracles that way. And then as you get traction, and then you start seeing what the holes are, and you can see that clear use of funds and how that's going to help you scale, then bring in people. I say bring in angels first because they're along for the ride. They
Yeah.
love to be part, especially operator angels. Those are folks who have worked at a company, either at a startup in a really, C-suite role. And so they know so much about what you need to grow.
Yeah.
And I also just want to finally say that so many founders go it alone, and that's never going to work. You got to have somebody in the founder world to
Yeah.
chat with.
Yeah, it's a lonely world if you don't have anyone, and it doesn't matter. That's so true for the founder role in the startup world. But really, at any role, you need someone because someone has done it before you, and you don't have to duplicate or replicate what they've done, but they can give you insight that you may be able to use. And I'm very fortunate now that I don't know if I would go so far as to call them mentors. I don't want to put that pressure on them, but I have a lot of people that I can rely on, both from my previous experience at Zoom and then just overall people that I
Yeah.
can just reach out to and talk to. And that's extremely helpful to me. And then, it's always good to have maybe people that don't know but are supportive. They don't know what you need but are supportive in other
They're
ways. And I
they're your
and I'm
cheerleaders. They believe
and
in you.
and that's something that's extremely fortunate a lot of people. But I think it's also important to be able to differentiate, discern from the cheerleaders and the yes men, so to speak, the people, because you need cheerleaders, but you need the cheerleaders that are going to be honest with you, because that's going to hold you accountable as well. That's going to be, because I've noticed that as well. It's like you can say yes to me all you want, that doesn't actually help me get better.
Now
I
here's
need pushback.
Yeah, well, you need pushback, but you also need, it's kind of like parenting with logic with teens, okay? You need to put it
Yeah,
back on you and say, "You know what? What I know about you is that you're an amazing problem solver. So I know you're gonna figure this out. Why not talk to this person? Why not talk to that person? But let me tell you the main reason you need someone who is unbiased and outside the circle of folks you're working with, okay? One is a lot of times you have the answer inside you. But if you don't have the chance to have it bubble up and you really take it out, digest it, look at it, and have someone to even just actively listen to you while you share it, you're not going to be able to pull that out. For businesses I've had, okay, that's the number one thing I learned, was that a lot of times it was in me. Secondly, with team members, you cannot go to them and go, "What do you think? And I'm thinking about this." And it puts more pressure on their plate.
yeah.
You need to be decisive. "I've made a decision." And then they can go, "I hate that decision." Then you can go, "Really, why?" And yeah, instead of going, "Well, what do you think?" Because now it's not on their plate. It's not another responsibility. You have shown up as the leader and said, boom. And then you take feedback, and then you can calibrate accordingly
Yeah.
from their feedback.
I think it's important also to know that you're all working toward the same goal. You want to see the success of, your startup. Whether that success is continued growth or sustainability, you want to see it, be successful. And I
Yeah.
think that's important to know that no one's working against you. They're working with you, and they're just giving you what you need to sort of put it together. Now you take from that what you will. And I think that's so important because you can go, there's different directions to go. People take criticism in different ways.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want? It's just, do you want the feedback that you're receiving to be positive? Then you have to think about it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's positive in different ways, and that's
Oh,
something that you find yourself like thinking
yeah.
about now. It's like, wait, take a
There's
step back. It's not about me. It's about the company. It's about the goal. Like
absolutely.
we're working toward a goal.
And being the observer is so important. And I know it's so hard because you're so often in it, right? You're in it, everything is just glopping onto you, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? And oh my gosh. And if you pull yourself out and go, hmm, that's an interesting. Let me pull in this thread. Oh boy, that didn't work out. That was a disaster. Okay, let me pull in this thread. Remove the judgment on yourself, that inner critic voice that's always hammering away. Just say, yeah, 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 yeah. And then go back. Yeah, give them some food, give them someone else to talk to. But keep coming back to, wow, that's an interesting problem. And just really finding that confidence inside yourself that you are going to figure it out. So instead of
Mhm.
feeling inadequate, sometimes you just say, "Oh, I wasn't prepared for that." Because
Yeah.
hello, nothing will prepare you for this founder journey except doing it.
It's it's and I think people need to get okay with failing. It's, people want to
Oh, it's
succeed.
delicious.
People want to
Failing.
succeed day
Oh.
one. And quite frankly, if you succeed day one, that means you sat on this way too long. And it was just like you should have like been out there a long time ago. But
Or anybody says, yeah, anybody who looks like they're succeeding from day one are just plain lying. There's no
yeah,
negative energy around failing. It is everything you're doing as a founder is an experiment. And you may come, a founder may come away going, I really hated being a founder. I'm going to go back to working for someone. I feel like
yeah.
that's a better use of my talent because that's another
And
thing too.
you
There's
can be
all
so successful.
yeah, folks just think the meme of burn the bridges, do whatever it takes, don't give up. When they say don't give up, they're really meaning don't give up on how you want to feel. What is happiness? What does, fulfillment look like for you?
Hmm.
So by pulling on these threads, you find that out. So for example, Damon John from Shark Tank, he'll always say, "Hey, I'm investing in this founder. They may not work it out with this business, but I'll invest in their next one because they're amazing." So just, lighten up on yourself, know when to quit. A lot of times founders just hang in there way too long. It's okay. One of my favorite founders just folded up her business. It was time to move on. She was very transparent. It was a wonderful 4-year run that she helped was Founder Jim. It was Mandela, Shoemaker, Hodge Dixon. 18 cohorts they prepared for raising capital. Phenomenal. And she's like, it's time for me to do something else. Wonderful. You can feel that way as a founder. You don't have to exit. You don't have to sell. You can say, we're done. That's, it's
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people need to remember is take a step back.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Why did you start this? If you started this to get rich, then
Never gonna work.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's never gonna work.
It's
Sorry,
like
folks.
play the lotto. Getting rich is sort of a byproduct, icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Why did you start it? 99% of founders, well, maybe not 99%, the majority of founders had, founded a company because they were trying to solve a problem. They
That
were
they
trying to
love.
solve they were trying to solve a problem that was maybe at the time unique to them. Um,
Right. So that's why it's so important to fall in love with the problem, everyone, not the
yeah.
solution.
Yeah, it's like because you want to have to keep working on it. It's
Right.
something that you want to keep doing day or night, that you're gonna, sink or swim, you're gonna keep working on it. If this company fails, you're gonna still try to solve this problem in a different way.
Yeah.
It's that's what's important. And you have to realize there may be competitors out in the market. That doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is solved. Maybe they're not focused on your specific problem, and you have to really identify what is the problem. I think the other mistake that people make is looking at competitors and I have to do what they do. And no, you
Do
don't.
you see this grin on my face? This is leading to my favorite quote in the whole world. If you're not following Seth Godin and getting his daily nuggets, get on that email list. It's the best thing you'll ever
It's
do. But his quote is, "Sure, it's been done before, but not by you and not for us." And
There
you
you
just have to
go.
go down the bread aisle to see that.
It's it's there's so there's so many different ways to skin a cat, as they say, and it's
That's
just like,
right.
what do you? I mean, I've never skinned a cat.
I
Don't
know.
want to.
It's an old analogy. We do, but
But
understood.
yeah, it's
Understood.
I think there's something refreshing about it. But back to you. I think there's something refreshing about what you're doing, that you're putting these founders, diverse founders out there. And I love to see that because it really is. I love the way that you describe your YouTube channel. It's edutainment.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
it really is educational and it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Entertaining as well, because I love to see you now. I've seen you live 3 times now, and I think the rest are recorded because
Yeah.
I only recently started watching your videos,
Thank
and
you
I'm
for
going
watching,
back
Gabe.
and I'm just like, this is really educational, number one. So if
Yeah.
if you even if you're not in the field and you have goals, desires, aspirations, it's that old saying, dress for the job you want. Well,
Right.
educate yourself for the job you want also. It's not just dressing. You have to, actually know something,
It's the number
maybe.
one thing I say.
So
Founders, you have to
it's
up your founder game because as you do better, your business will do better.
it's yeah, you have to upskill yourself, and you have to know that nobody knows everything. So surround yourself with people
Right.
that know more than you, because someone will always know more than you.
Right.
It's just that's just the reality. Nobody knows everything. The faster you accept that, the better your life will be. It's just, constantly learning. It's You're constantly learning. You don't go into the world when you have your first child, you're a parent also. When you have a child, you
Right.
don't automatically know, what do I do?
You're one page ahead of the kid in the how-to book,
And
if that.
sometimes it feels like the kid is ahead of you. It's
So
it's
scary. And
so
each child is different how you parent them. It's the same thing when you have multiple businesses. It's one thing that's also important to me is that I happen to be my personality is a bit of a flotation device. So I've been that way my whole life. It's just how my DNA came together. And so I understand, having crawled through 4 businesses myself, that one minute you're popping the champagne and literally the next minute you can be crying into it. And so I wanna bring that humor. I wanna say, "Oh, yeah, startup founders sleep like babies. They wake up every 2 hours crying." All of that stuff, and just keep the humor going while we talk about the hardcore things, because why not laugh a little? Why not have fun? Why not talk about that happened? Are you kidding? Oh my god, it was a disaster. That's right, it was a disaster, but we got through it. Oh my gosh. Um, and bring that's why I have the Andelicious brand. And for some people, they just shudder when they hear that. And I go, great, because I've immediately filtered out folks who are not in alignment with my style. They can go follow someone who's very serious or has a different style in presenting information. But for me, I'm very celebratory. I love to not only celebrate my guest and honor them for having had the courage to do this founder journey, but anybody who shows up, I love to. I get out my clappers and I celebrate them. And that's how I want them to feel, so that if nothing else, they see my smile, they see my good energy, and they go, ah, okay, I can
I
go back and do this.
I love that about you. I love it when you pause for an Andelicious moment. I love looking at them. I'm like, this is very, it's her. It's just, it fits your personality and it comes through. And that's what I love about it. And, I love that, as the guest, and again, I'm jealous about you being live because I love that as the guest, the viewers are commenting, you're calling them out. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
so and so from wherever you are, you've
right.
got people watching from all over the world. And I'm like,
I
that's
do.
amazing.
Is
I was
and
like,
my biggest challenge is trying to remember, okay, what is their business again? That's why I always invite people, "Could you please put your business name, one-liner, and URL?" Because I talk to so many
yeah,
founders. I mean, I co-hosted a pitch event, monthly pitch event here in Boston for 3 years. I have mentored founders for years, and so I love them all dearly, but this, older brain of mine, I have to refresh my own browser. "Could you refresh my browser brain, please?" And
we all
so
need that.
oh my gosh, and so but some people will, always be stuck in my brain and but I do
Yeah.
you just called in something that I love to do so much, which is that enhance. That's a core value of mine, and you have it too. You love to put the spotlight on someone else and say, "See, look at that. Can you believe that? That's amazing." And
It's,
that's why you're a good leader as well.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, that's what it's about. It's about
Yeah.
putting other people forward because, we've all had our time, our moment, or whatever it is. And it's about what else can we do for other people, spotlighting other people. And it's, it comes in different ways. It comes in different ways. And that's just, something that I like to say. It's like we're all multifaceted people. So we don't have to just talk about the one thing that people know us for. Um, we can all be many different peoples. We wear many different masks, back to that poem. And it's just, it's who we are as people. We're
Yeah,
not just one, we're constantly evolving machines,
exactly.
beings, you know.
One of
So,
my biggest challenges to speak to that was when I was called to launch a website to help couples, heterosexual couples, stay tuned in and turned on year after year, keeping intimacy in their relationship. Well, who talks about that? And certainly everyone in my proper Bostonian circle of colleagues told me this will ruin your career. No one will ever take you seriously again. But I was able to create the website very tastefully, very playfully. Never did anybody use a curse word. Nobody got nasty. They were definitely naughty, but they were not nasty. And I was able to set up a YouTube channel. You can find it to this day, Bring Back Desire. I'm talking about things that but I was just called to do that for about 4 years. It was a huge hit, and I helped a lot of couples from serious issues like porn addiction to what happened. We've become roommates, or parallel partners raising our kids, but we don't have that intimacy. And, it was not easy to do, but I was able to keep my professional Andy Lyons where it needed to be as well. So it was a fascinating for branding folks out there. It was a fascinating online branding moment to be the chief
amazing.
passion curator on one hand and be a startup founder on the other hand. So,
I think that
um,
speaks volumes of it because I think that there has to come, we have to be able to take the personal feelings out of some things and look at it as the fact that, you're a businesswoman making an impact on a certain business. And it's nothing more than, regardless of what that business is, some people may disagree with it.
yeah.
Um, but you're not hurting anyone. If anything, you're trying to help people.
Oh, okay. That was a
But
problem that needed solving. Period. End of
yeah,
story.
exactly. It's
The
just,
divorce rate so high.
so it's, you are, it goes to actually show how proven certain, methodologies are in certain business practices because you're now, you're taking business practices and applying it to somebody's very much personal life. So it kind of validates a lot of things and it
Yeah.
just lends more
And
credence.
yeah,
So
it was a business, 100%. But it was a great way to also, because I launched it in early 2011. It was a great way for me to learn about digital marketing,
yeah,
online marketing. How do you brand a business? And, folks, we're faced with one new platform every time we turn around. I remember I just nailed uh, Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, and just nailed and gotten a good handle on Instagram, and then Pinterest came out. I was like, "Oh, dang. I gotta figure out another one."
There's
And
always gonna
sure,
be another one.
but you need to pick your 3, and so I look at where my founders are hanging out, the people I wanna reach, and they are on Twitter. Like, you would not believe if you're fundraising, you best be on Twitter. It has a highly engaged angel venture capital presence
Yeah.
on Twitter. And then, of course, LinkedIn, and then Instagram. So when I go to interview someone and I go to follow wherever they are, their businesses are, they might have 1,000 followers at the most on Twitter. Then I hop on into Instagram and they've got thousands. So, to me, that's my 3-legged stool. So anybody who's listening, have those 3 the places
Yeah.
that you're hanging out. I do believe we still need a presence in other locations, and of course, my YouTube channel is starting to take off, which is very exciting.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I think, it's great to diversify. Just like
yeah,
investments, you have to diversify your portfolio or your presence, your social media portfolio. But absolutely, to have that core, you have to start somewhere.
that's right.
It's like for me, I think is LinkedIn is where I was on first, and then Twitter. I'm barely on Instagram, but I'm trying.
No, but you need to go where you feel that people who want to hear from you are going to be,
Yeah,
and who
absolutely.
you're going to engage. So if it's like if you're getting a lukewarm feeling, I have friends who just like LinkedIn, never going to work for them ever. It's
Yeah.
always crickets. So they're on Facebook and they're on Instagram and they're maybe Twitter or somewhere else,
Yeah,
Pinterest.
and I think that's what's key about business now. There's so many different avenues for you to potentially, explore and get into. And that's
Yeah,
exciting because, I don't know where I heard this quote, but I've repeated it online a couple of times, and I truly do believe it that so long as you're trying, you haven't failed
that
because you're
oh my
still
gosh.
trying.
You
And
can first of all, you showed up. You said, "I'm
yeah,
gonna do this," and you came through. You could be just stumbling every single day. Doesn't
yeah.
matter. You
And
showed
it's
up.
and that's what it's really, I'm gonna get my own. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna get something. But
Sometimes I bring out the pom-poms. I just did a short video, shorts are someday I'll have a video editor to make it easy, but short videos can be a lot of fun, and I did one where how it's so important that founders be seen,
mhm,
and this is for everybody, not just
yeah,
founders. Be seen, be heard, be celebrated.
mhm,
So when you have your inner circle, make sure those are the folks you're keeping close by. The naysayers are going to be there and you can keep them out, but those who are inside, who have the firm belief that no matter what, you're going to be okay
mhm,
and that you're going to figure it out, and you're just pulling on this thread, and if it doesn't work out, you're going to do something else that's going to be equally extraordinary because you're going to bring that lived experience to your next gig. People have to
yeah,
remember it's not one and done, whether it's startup life or a new role in a company or a new career. You've decided, I'm leaving this type of business or role behind. I'm going into a whole different industry as this role. Your lived experiences will serve you.
and I think that's so important because every experience, I think what's unique about it, it brings about new people for you to meet. Now,
Oh,
because if you're working with the exact same people, I think the biggest experience, the biggest skill that you can have is being a people person and being personable, knowing how to talk to people.
yeah.
Someone, recently it was asked, what's been my most valuable training that I've ever done. And I was like, I took some psychology courses. That's what was most valuable to me, knowing how to potentially interact with people, helping understand certain behavior, being able to identify when you're a people manager, you there's certain expectations that you just know how to deal with things. And quite frankly, that's not the case. Being a parent really does prepare you for a lot of things. Um,
Trust me, I talk about it all the time. That making
well,
a decision. Do you want A or do you want B? Right?
yeah,
Do you
and
want
then sometimes you have to make that decision. This is the way it's going to be, and deal with it. It's
And when they sit there and they go, "I hate you, mommy," you go, "Okay, I understand,
yeah,
but I love you and I hope you change your mind."
yeah.
It's not the end
So
of the world.
so sometimes you have to really just like this is the way it is, and that's the end of that. So there's certain things, but taking, I feel like, psychology courses or
Yes.
other people related courses. You don't have to be in HR to take HR related courses, in my opinion. And it really is beneficial to growing the
100%.
team and those, the other skills, the technical skills, the marketing, the whatever. That, I'm not saying that can be learned
Those are
easily. No.
tactics.
But yeah, exactly. Those are tactics. Oh, perfect. Yes. Those are tactics. And, we can always outsource that, and we can find some of those great people to outsource on your show. And
Right?
it's,
Yeah, I had a wonderful woman, and she's down in your area. She she had to figure out tech. She tells this great story, Gabe. Oh my gosh. She decided to get her degree in computer science. She's like barely even opened a computer, right? So she's sitting beside all these techies in her class, knows nothing, but she got up to speed quickly. Today, she helps founders who are non tech founders understand enough so they can lead, so they can hire that tech team, and they know, and then they'll know, when do I bring in, when do I outsource, what questions do I need to ask when I outsource. These are so important. The best tool that you have for life, period, is between your ears. It's your
yeah,
brain. And that's why in
absolutely.
every show I always ask, what mindset hack did you use when, not if, when you were feeling inadequate, when you were feeling hashtag why bother as a founder. Uh, and I also ask, how has entrepreneurship served you both personally and professionally? And that's when you hear some remarkable stories
Hmm.
about what they've learned about themselves. I tell people, just start a business for the heck of it, because yes, having North Star, problem solve, all of that, but you will never lose, because you're going to uncover attributes you did not know you were capable of, parts of you that just were so undiscovered because you hadn't been challenged in this specific way. And that includes, as you were talking about, the psychology, the stories you tell yourself, the stories you tell others. How are you going to manage the different personality types? Because you cannot hire people who are like you. You have to hire people who are good, and then you're going to have to fire those people. So it's so important that when you bring them on board, you're very clear about what's going to be happening, so that you can say, it's just not a good fit. And let me help you find your
Yeah.
next gig where it's going to be a better fit for you. So you
Yeah.
do
And I
it with
think that's key.
care. And I'm sure that you're like that, Gabe. Just listening to you talk and how you express yourself in the world, you clearly have a deep, you just love of humanity.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Andy, this has been so much fun. Oh my goodness. Thank you for agreeing to be on my show, first off.
Honored.
thank
So
you for
honored.
thank you for responding. I'm the one who's on it. I really am. This has been so much fun. I've enjoyed watching your channel. I've enjoyed,
Thank you so
listening
much.
to you and learning from you. And I think you're an amazing person.
Thank you.
And I think you're doing so much that's really helpful for, startup founders, diverse or non-diverse, everyone basically. It's
Everyone.
just, it's really applicable to anyone in business. And there's another and I'm trying.
Are good. Just, I always talk about Obama, right? How many times did he use It's okay. It's just we try to
Yeah.
get better at it. My big challenge is saying all the time. I got to erase it in my head.
Is there anything that you want to leave people with before I let you go? I'm gonna put all of everything in the show notes where people can find you,
Great.
your channel, how they can
Um,
contact you. Not
well,
your
first,
home address though.
well, of course, I would welcome followers. You either join my meetup group, Startup Life Live meetup group, where you get an alert whenever I post a new show, because these folks are fascinating. And a few of them will be name brands in a few years, but right now many of them are in the trenches getting their business up and running. I have a few luminaries. Absolutely. If you can find it in your heart to subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would mean a lot to me, because then it helps me reach more people. And other than that, your dreams are worth your time, your effort, your sacrifice, and it's never too late to dream a new dream. And be sure, For folks over 50, don't be caged by your age. You can do
I
this,
love that.
work in the world, whatever it is you're being called to do until you take your last breath.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andy. This has been Andelicious for me. So thank
Thank
you.
you, Gabe, so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here. And of course, I always love chatting with you.
Thank you.